Hello and welcome to the Business of the Business podcast. I'm your co-host, JP John Poz, from the Two-Man Power Trip. Of course, joining me is the doctor himself, my co-host, Mr. Lavie Margolin. Lavie, how you doing today, sir?
Hey, John, I'm doing great. As we've talked about for years, and we've been fortunate to have guests. I've been obviously a huge wrestling fan for many years, but especially when I was younger, like all about the comic books. Like I couldn't remember any word lists in school, but like I knew that Overstreet price guide from A to Z. This affords us the opportunity when talented people in the world of comic books create books that relate to wrestling. It gives us the chance to talk about it. So very lucky to have on the Kyle Starks, who brought me to the comic store for a very specific objective to buy the first issue of WrestleHeist. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I made that book.
Yes,
Nice.
It's amazing. So before I turn over to John for the first part and we talk about it, I gave you a little bit of a heads up. Hopefully it wasn't a warning, but a heads up that I always ask my guests, two of my favorite books, two of the only books when I was a kid at that time were Valiant's Battlemania, which had the WWF license, which is quite a story, actually, if you go back and look that up. Whereas Marvel had a very realistic, outside of a Rick Rude alter ego type of character, but a very realistic WCW book as well that lasted for nearly a year. So each had its own advantages, right? You had the legendary Steve Ditko on Battlemania, which I never thought about till a few years ago. But which was your favorite and why at that time?
Yeah, Dr. Lavie, you're going to love this. I don't know either one of those friggin' books. I never heard of them before.
Wow.
And I think I know, I felt like I know most of them. That was Good Valiant time, right? Like, that would have been Good Valiant.
This was like, it might have even been the first book that they published. Like,
no, it wouldn't have been the first. It would have been the first one, but I bet it was early. Yeah.
Licensed books first, right? So they had the Super Mario, Zelda, but Battlemania was right there before they started doing the Gold Key series and their own books.
That's wild.
Yeah, and
that's so crazy because when that would have been happening, I would have definitely been working at a comic shop, and I definitely would have been a big wrestling fan. You could have named any 20 wrestling books, and you named the two that I absolutely never. I don't know them.
So I'm gonna have to
say, I love the idea of a unauthorized Rick Rude alter ego. So I'm going to go with that one. That's what I'm going to go with.
So Kyle, I'm going to have to go a little bit darker then. What are your thoughts on the Ultimate Warrior?
It's bad. Shot? It's really bad. Any wrestling comic that just has one wrestler's name on it is bad. That's a fact. Like the Undertaker, the Ultimate Warrior, that one's bad. Yeah. But it was like the Undertaker. I'm trying to think of who else. There's like four guys. None of them are good. Don't bother with them.
Nash was there? There was a Nash book.
Don't do it.
But it could be. I think that's one of the challenging things of balancing like this, taking the world 100%. Of wrestling and putting it into the world of comic books, which we'll get into much more. But let me turn over to John.
I have thoughts, so I'll restrain myself till later.
So now that I know that you're Evansville, Indiana's own, when did you kind of first discover wrestling, and was it in the Evansville area?
Yeah, I've been here my whole life. So the very first comic that I made, which was 13 years ago, so I was like 33 when I did it, I think, was a wrestling comic called The Legend of Ricky Thunder, which I self-published, and I did a successful Kickstarter, and it kind of started my career because I was about to, anyway, let me real quick. I was about to have my second kid. And I was like, I'm never going to have free time again. And I made sort of a bucket list of things that I wanted to do before I no longer had free time. And one was finish a comic. And I know my own shortcomings. And I was like, well, the only way I'll do it is if I force myself to do it, if I trick myself. And if it's something that I want to exist so badly that I'll finish it just out of that desire of this thing existing. So I did a wrestling comic. At that time, there weren't very many. And obviously, there weren't any good ones. There were very few good ones. So I did this book called Legend of Ricky Thunder. And I was doing interviews, which was weird because I was just a guy working a blue collar factory job, suddenly doing interviews about comics. And they're like, "Oh, when did you start watching wrestling?" So I asked my mom, because I know I started watching wrestling because my grandmother would take me every Wednesday night to the Evansville Coliseum to see USWA or whatever it was, whatever letters it had at the time, Jeff Jarrett's Lawler promotion, or Jeff, you know what I mean. And she said, oh, she would take you in the baby carrier. So I would say I've known about wrestling apparently my entire life, and I've been consuming it my entire life, barring like some windows where I just bounced out because of where I was in my life, or because of lack of interest, or because I was protesting. One of those things. But
Now,
yeah, forever. Yeah.
Now, are you deeply tied to the Evansville wrestling scene, if you will, the legacy, the legend of the scene?
I mean, it's not what it used to be. There's been some sort of like passing throughs. We have a promotion. Shout out to WWA, who's actually pretty good, and they're sort of like Northern Kentucky, like a bunch of real small Northern Kentucky towns. But they put on a good show, and they do stories. And obviously, I'm a writer and an artist and a comic creator, so I've always been more interested in stories than anything else. So we love that. They have a pretty good promotion. They have a backdrop. We love that. They have a TV that shows videos, like quite the promotion. But I'd say after the USWA went under, we had stuff trying, and it was mostly bad. There was some Juggalo wrestling in there, a lot of deathmatch stuff that didn't really go over. But there was a period of time where a very young Chuck Taylor and a very young Ricochet wrestled here, and I missed that, unfortunately, because I would have let. They were like, I think 16 or 17. And I know there's a ladder match on YouTube that you can watch that's in the Evansville Coliseum. I was like, I wish I would have seen that. But so we tried to go. It's hard because I have kids and I'm so busy. But we're going at the end of this month to see them again. I tried to go. They used to come here, but the Coliseum, it's a whole thing. We don't want to get into it. Not as much as I wish I could. There's also some very, very dangerous independent wrestling where people are untrained, and we've seen some people fall on their heads in very uncomfortable ways, which is great, but also awful for them.
Definitely. We've seen that on TV too, unfortunately, once in a while.
Well, those guys in theory know how to fall. I don't think these guys these guys know what they're doing. Yeah. So I saw someone on a Reddit, and they're like, is there good bad wrestling? Like there's good bad movies or TV? And I'm like, yeah, it's called independent wrestling. Go see your local wrestling show, and one of those matches will be good bad. I promise you.
That is pretty much true. Pretty accurate. Now, who were you a fan of though? Like when you were a kid, who was like your guys?
Yeah. So as an adult, you go, oh, well, it was Memphis wrestling. So like Jerry Lawler was the greatest thing. And I will stand by the good guy Jerry Lawler Memphis wrestling character is the best. I would make a very strong argument that they are one of the best faces of all time. They were a dad. They if anyone got in trouble, they would always come to the ring. No matter who it was, and such a good dude. And he'd throw fire, and that's the best. Anyone who came out of Memphis wrestling, and this still holds true for other promotions, they came out of Memphis. So like when Kurt Hennig showed up on WWE as Mr. Perfect, that was my guy. Like that, I saw him as just Kurt Hennig. He was my guy. When Jeff Jarrett showed up, that's my guy because they came from my place. So generally it's stuff like that. Jerry Lawler was hands down my favorite for years. And there's a lot of those guys that are sort of the Fantastics. You know what I mean? Like we love the Fantastics. Like there was a bunch of dudes like that. I really liked Bill Dundee because I was little. That didn't hold up. That's an unpopular take. That's not a good one. He was not nice, man. Dutch Montel because he had a whip. So pretty much anyone who came out of USW was probably my favorite, like WWE or WCW guy. And then when I sort of got back in, like very hard into wrestling many years later, anyone who comes out of Chikara, which is also an unpopular take. Listen, they're all at some point they're probably all bad. They're all bad opinions by no fault of my own. But anyone who comes out of Chikara is like my favorite guy now. Like anyone, Eddie Kingston, Orange Cassidy, name it. Like those are my favorite guys always.
So when did you decide, like, hey, I want to, I love art, I love wrestling, I want to mend these two together, I want to meld them together? When did you kind of put that into your brain waves?
Yeah, so like I said, when it was the first comic I did, and I did it online and I didn't promote it. It's kind of a weird. I've fallen into a lot of things that's sort of ridiculous professionally. I had no intention to be a professional comic creator. At any point, maybe when I was 18, I was working at a comic shop and I said, comics are cool and I draw okay, but I never finished anything. Because I was an 18-year-old kid or a 16-year-old kid or whatever. So when I made that comic, like I learned, if I make things that I wish existed in the world, and also I really love the process of making these things, that it's just great fun. And so what are we, again, 15 years later or whatever it is, I'm so bad at math. I had to make comics. I did WrestleHeist, and the reason why I did that is because I'm trying not to do a wrestle comic probably every time I make a comic, because it's so I like it. I like it for so many reasons, and I think there's a lot of crossover and sort of the Venn diagram between comics and wrestling and similarities and why we're attracted to each one. So yeah, it's really just I've kind of been fighting it off for a long time, but I kind of did WrestleHeist now because I wanted to do something that wouldn't stress me out. Like that was kind of the biggest thing is I just want to have fun with something, and I knew it wouldn't stress me out. I knew what the story like. It's just I'm just going to make the story. It'll be easy, and I found that to be true up until the last 2 issues, which are the actual heist, which is very complicated. Apparently, I've learned it's very difficult to do a heist in comics because of the flashbacks and the scene changes. And anyway, we're doing it. It's great. We're having great fun. So that's why now I did it. But I did it before because, like I said, I needed to. I wanted to finish a comic, and I was like, well, how can I guarantee that I, Kyle Starks, specifically, will finish a comic? And one was that I'm very like deadline oriented. Like I'm OCD about deadlines. So I said I'm going to post something on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I knew if I said that publicly, there's no way I don't do it. So sometimes I posted bad things on Tuesdays or Thursdays, and in the end, we went back and fixed it to make it when we went to print or whatever. But so that, and also it's like, well, it has to be something I wish existed. And again, at the time, there weren't a lot of wrestling comics that were good. I mean, I'm trying to think of one that was like that was really good, and I don't think there was one at that time. Now, since 2013, there's quite a few. There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of good ones, and some I'd say are like absolutely great. But it's I don't know. I like to think at one point in time, Ricky Thunder was voted the best wrestling comic of all time, but there was no competition. So.
Love that. Ricky Thunder, the legend of Ricky Thunder. But let's hand it over to Lavie. I know Lavie's got a lot of questions about Ricky Thunder.
Yeah, I'm like resisting so hard, just like diving deep into this USWA stuff. So maybe I'll but I have some notes on that at the end as time allows. But so around that time, although like I know it's confused and sort of the general lexicon and stuff, but I think I know enough to distinguish it that I think a graphic novel that's written to be a graphic novel as opposed to a collection of stories that trade paperback is quite different. But I think, do you think, that's what I really want to know, if you think Box Brown's Andre the Giant graphic novel helped to sort of like usher in like a new way of understanding somebody from the wrestling world and sort of portraying it in this graphic novel or comic book way that sort of like helped to sort of like set the stage a new respect or new way to look at things?
Yeah, it's a good question. I wonder, Box Brown's book came out like right after mine, and you've read my comic. I did this survey of everyone I knew. I asked everyone I knew who liked wrestling, who did comics or who liked comics and were adjacent to wrestling in some way. And Box Brown was the first person I reached out to. We've known each other because his book came out maybe a year or two after it. And I remember saying, because they're like, oh, Ricky Thunder is the best wrestling comic. Again, no competition. And I was like, I think Box Brown's Andre the Giant might be the actual best wrestling comic. It's really good. I don't know. It's a good question. I think because if we looked at the timeline, and I don't have it in front of me of what wrestling books came out, I'm not for sure the comic consumer universe really cared that much until Dana Warren Johnson's Do a Powerbomb. And I think there's like Joe and Starr has 2 wrestling comics that were direct to trade. They're out there, but like that WWE run is bad. It's super bad. Shout out to it's a really good writer, Hopeless, who's a really good writer. Dennis Hopeless, who wrote, I think the whole thing is a really good writer, but it's weird, and I don't know who it's for. It's just selling comics to people who would want to own WWE merch. So I don't know if Box Brown, you could be like he was responsible, but that is a really good book, and I think there's a larger argument about how much that did for his career, because like people were like, he made good books before, he made great books after that. And I think it's because there's a lot more eyes on him to let him kind of do whatever he wanted to do then.
Yeah.
Shout out to that and the Andy Kaufman book. The Andy Kaufman book's really good too.
Yeah, I enjoy them all. There's one where he wasn't the writer, but he was the artist about Vladimir Putin. So it's like a little bit, I think more of the writer's influence. It's a little bit more wordy and heavy, like whereas Box Brown, I noticed in that the way that you do things as well, like you can have one image, sort of like the wrestler walking down to the ring throwing the money, but like it conveys so much more rather than words. Whereas like in that book, like sort of going along with things where it didn't have as much of that opportunity. But I was fortunate to work with Box for my Trump Mania book.
Oh yeah, the cover.
Yeah, he did the cover and he did an image for each chapter, and then he did a cover of another book, which is a very rare book because it came out right before the pandemic. So like it kind of, but it was called Six Figure Gamer.
Oh, neat.
About sort of like looking at people of that generation and how they were sort of making money, which was an interesting thing, even though a lot of people didn't read that one, unfortunately.
He's great. Yeah, I love Box.
I think in terms of talking about the history of wrestling and comics, I think Headlock sort of like as like this get on the road, promote things, get the word out, keep it going. I think there was a lot there. But from Mike, and he had shared this,
Yes.
posting publicly every once in a while, he seemed to be very frustrated that the major publishers weren't considering the book. But the way that I see it, and I have no idea of, his bank account, what works, but like, it seems like he's kept it going so much longer than potentially something that would have been accepted by a major publisher would have been.
Yeah. I think the stuff with Headlock's interesting. I mean, there was, do you know, I'm blanking. There was an Image comic that wasn't even, it was wrestling adjacent. And I want to say it was called Ring Fury or something. I'm so bad. I can't believe I'm blanking on it. And Image put that out, and I know Michael like spoke to Image because if you're creator owned, if it's your own thing, that's sort of the who you want. But it's tough, man, and like no one wanted wrestling comics. Like in fact, based on sales of this one, I'm not for sure if they still want wrestling comics, which is wild to me because again, there's so much crossover between, especially superhero comics and professional wrestling. But I know, like, if you want to look at an example of someone hustling and keeping their dream alive, like Mike's and Headlock's great, because Headlock ended a while ago and he sort of pivoted into working with professional wrestlers to have them write stories that he was sort of editing, because he would have he would arrange an artist, which it's fascinating. He's made his own little wrestling empire. If you ever see him at a convention and you like wrestling, you better check him out, because there's going to be someone there you want to see, but also it's cool wrestling. Like, it's good stuff. Vampiro's motorcycle gang book, like, it's good stuff. It's fun. It's interesting to see, like, what would Christopher Daniels do if he got to write a story. Yeah, he hustled so hard. And it's tough to say why a publisher didn't want it, but I would say probably the bulk of it is that it's pretty inside baseball in regards to Headlock. And they think people just don't want that. Like, the broad audience don't want that. I don't know. That's speculation on my part. I can't speak for the publishers. I think Headlock's great. I think Mike's great. And he's working so hard. We love that. We love a hustler.
And speaking of outliers, for your WrestleHeist book, I know the thing now is to have multiple covers. And one of them was, of course, using Rob Liefeld's Bedrock character, who I once tried to make. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the Jewish holiday called Hanukkah, but you make these food sort of like, with different types of jelly inside or whatever. So there was some extra dough. So when I was 9 or 10 years old, I was trying to make my own Bedrock. So it's a character very much from my childhood. But that was on the cover of your book. So I'd love to learn how you connected with Rob about that. To me, he's still like 25 years old in my mind, but I love his podcast and how candid he is and just how successful he is.
Yeah, I would say he is still 25, but that's speculation on my part. So I don't know that guy. Image just did when Youngblood was coming out, they did a month of Youngblood variants. And my comic actually was, I don't know why I got the email, because my comic would actually come out the wrong month. It came out in December, and that Youngblood month was November. I think because my book was supposed to come out in November. Anyway, but I was like, can I please do that? And the reason why I wanted to please do it very much is because the only other Image series I've done, which is the only other series I've drawn to date, was an Eisner-nominated book called Rock Candy Mountain. And when Rock Candy Mountain came out, they also did a Youngblood like crossover variant cover thing. So I did a cover, instead of Rock Candy Mountain, it was Bad Rock Candy Mountain. And I drew the same cover, but I just exchanged the main character with Bad Rock. So I felt like it was very like serendipitous that it would be Youngblood again. And I was like, how can I not do it? Also, there's still a great joke there. Can you smell what the Bad Rock's cooking? Is very funny to me. Yeah, so that's true. Would it be cool if I met Rob Liefeld? I have not. I don't know him. I know people who worked with him. They say he's great. He's very enthusiastic. He's a little bit cranky. I think he's gotten a little cranky in the last couple of years, but I think he's very happy overall. And why wouldn't you be if you're Rob Liefeld?
We're not gonna go so far as to say the Jim Cornette of the comic book world, but when you've seen things and you're successful, you kind of call it out.
Yeah, he's got opinions. We all do. I mean, we all do.
Before we move on, you said Rock Candy Mountain. Is that from the song? Like the lyrics of a song?
Yeah. It's a Kung Fu Hobo epic.
I love that. That's awesome.
Love it. Yeah. It was Eisner nominated. They just reprinted it last year, actually, because I got just successful enough. People were buying one of my books again, so they reprinted it as one collection. Go out to your local comic shop and get Rock Candy Mountain. It's very good. Hard recommend.
So in terms of the content of your book, just having read the first issue so far, I think the second issue is about 2 weeks away.
Very soon, yeah.
I think most wrestling comic books, and it's hard to get away from, is that evil promoter trope. And not to give things away, it's there, but it's sort of a fresh take on things. So what were you thinking about? What's been done before? Sort of there's sometimes the easy way out, which doesn't generally work, in terms of fiction and wrestling, and finding a different path.
Yeah, so I don't know when we want to have this conversation about just how wrestling comics are generally made, or any wrestling media. I think the thing is, you want to I love archetypes. I love archetypes in all of my work. I think they give you shorthand, and they're, especially now that we're doing 4 and 5 issue series for everything in comics, having shorthand and an idea who these characters are speeds along the process of telling a good story with them. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you're doing, it's Vince, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Every promoter is bad. Historically, they're all awful. It's not really a trope. It's not really a bit. It's kind of the status quo. You know what I mean? So that was it. But also, it's for the nature of what this book was going to be, which is called WrestleHeist, it might surprise you. It's about wrestlers doing a heist. It's well, what's the most interesting / dumbest thing they could be heisting? Which means they have a lot of money. And I think the answer is, obviously, it's these promoters. They're the ones who have all the money. So doing evil promoter, it's just the easiest. It's just the best way to tell the story and the most interesting way. And I think if you're a wrestling fan, again, it's a shorthand and a trope where you go, of course. Of course, he's the problem. And then we try to make them, bad enough that people want them to be robbed. That's the sort of secret. And he's pretty bad. He's pretty awful.
So, in terms of the cover A, so those seem to be inspired by the wrestling magazines, Pro Wrestling Illustrated specifically. How did you come up with that concept? I think it really stands out well, and it's sort of engaging the little headlines.
Yeah, I hope it does stand out. Well, here again, they're not good answers, but they are the answers. I'm bad at covers. I'm bad at splash pages. I'm bad at hero shots. I'm bad at dramatic images that would attract some. It's just, I'm a storyteller. I do sequential storytelling, and I think that's my strength. My art is only okay. I think I can say that humbly and objectively. So it's well, what do you want? What can catch someone's eye? And I found that the peak of my design skill is 1970s vintage pro wrestling magazine. So they're all, every A cover is a magazine cover. It's a lot of fun. I might only be doing magazine covers for the rest of my life, because I think they look good, and they sort of stand out. Hopefully, they stand out on the shelf. I think I have some really nice coloring, very vibrant colors. So I think they pop, and I think it's a good logo. So which again is a trope. It's shorthand. Wrestling fans will see that logo and go, "Oh, I think this is a wrestling thing. I like wrestling," and then you hope they pick it up, right? That's what you hope.
So this is a 5-issue limited series, and then it's already being solicited, right? That you can get the trade paperback. So sort of, what do you need to see? Obviously, objectively, sales, but what do you need to see to keep this world going? And do you have other concepts in mind if it goes well?
Yeah, it's not going that well. We'll have to see how trades do. The comic industry is in a bad spot right now, which is a conversation not for this website, though it is business related.
We like anyway. We like to talk. Yeah.
There won't be more. I wish it would have been, and you never know, there's word of mouth, and the industry's changed in how people are consuming things, and the trade could do great, though at that point you're so far away, it's almost not worth the effort, because the direct market comic industry that people go through, it's a very short memory for everyone involved. So there probably won't be more. I do have an idea to do one more, and it's possible I do a Kickstarter but we'll see. I have so many projects I want to do to sort of put a lot of time into something that I don't think there'll be a great return for is unfortunately just not worth it. But I do have another idea. Could I do it like a Kickstarter, a smaller size one shot? Maybe. We'll see. We'll see how in trades will decide that when the trade comes out, because that's a completely different type of purchase. Trades are when you get into a situation where you hope people are buying it as a gift, right? Where they go, I know someone who likes wrestling. I think they'll like the story. It's fun, which I think that would be my pitch. Do you like wrestling? It's fun. So we'll see. We'll see what that decides. I would like to do one more just because, like I said, it's very stress-free for me because it's a language that I know, and it's easy to do in a way that I think is enjoyable for everybody. Like trying very hard to find that line where you don't like wrestling. Would you like WrestleHeist? I think you would. And I've had quite a few people be like, I don't even like wrestling, and I like this because the characters are interesting, and it's a heist, right? We love a romp, we love a heist, and we love wrestling. So we're covering. I try to do like very niche things broadly, as much as I can, without disrespecting whatever that source material is.
So on the other side of things, for people that not only like wrestling but are in wrestling, have you heard from anyone or any surprises from the business?
I wish. I would say early on, like I'm good friends with Jason Ayers, who's a WWE SmackDown referee, and he was very helpful. I had a sort of text exchange with Shane Helms, asking some questions about certain things. That was a conversation with Shane Helms. I haven't heard back from anyone yet. So again, but I know what the sales numbers were. It doesn't surprise me that no one's read it. So we'll see. Also, most of those guys are out of the country, so it's a busy time for them. So it's probably a bad time because I know of the handful of WWE guys that do read comics regularly. Cody supposedly, Gargano supposedly, Kofi and Xavier and Omos, I think, are real life comic book fans, where they sort of stay on top of it. I haven't heard anything yet. We're hopeful because you know what? That is the best promotion that I can get is Kofi Kingston saying I just read this book and it was good. But I don't have control over that. We don't have control over who's saying nice things, unfortunately.
So now our priority, a couple minutes on back to Evansville, the Memphis territory, and so on. I think it's such a fascinating period, as you mentioned, Kurt Hennig. So I'm assuming through like mid to late 80s is when you began watching. So one of the things that I wanted to inquire on is like, what awareness did you have that this was like a territory? Obviously, you know that there's Memphis because they have Mid-South footage, and I think when it would be bicycle to Evansville, it would be just an hour. But did you even know they were going to Louisville or Arkansas or Nashville, or it's just like very much there's Memphis and there's Evansville?
I don't think I knew that there was other stops. And whenever they showed, because we had I can't remember what their Saturday morning show was called, but it had this great opening of like this wrestling statue spinning and cool music. Like I always thought that that's where they wrestled in Memphis, which was like kind of like those early NWA Power. There's like there's 3-seat bleachers that kind of go like a really great. I just assumed that was the Memphis wrestling arena. So whenever they showed like the Mid-South stuff, which like was a million people, it was always very confusing to young me. But I did understand, like, I think I did understand like there was a Memphis show that was basically our show again. I think even as a kid, I understood that we were a test run. And I think the biggest reason, or the moment that I sort of figured that out, is that obviously Andy Kaufman didn't come to Evansville, but they would still test run Andy Kaufman bits with Jimmy Hart sort of speaking on behalf of Andy Kaufman, which is always weird because it's like, this is what Andy would say if he was, you know what I mean? Like it was a weird way of having to do this bit rather than sort of Jimmy just doing it, because what did we know? So I think I understood that we were kind of a test run for what they were doing, but we never saw the Memphis, like I never saw the Memphis show, right? I just saw the Saturday morning show, which was just continuing story to set up the next week's, loop or whatever. I was pretty little then. And I was just happy to be there for the most part. But I think I did understand. And I think every now and then maybe they would mention that they went other places, hoping to sell more tickets, probably. Like maybe these people would go see, even though you would see the same show twice, because that's how they were doing it then. They were just test running for the big Memphis show to get all the kinks out before they got there. Yeah, I think I knew, but I also think I didn't care. And I still don't. It's not real. You know
what? What?
It's not real, and I don't think there was ever really a point where it was like a Santa Claus moment for me. You know what I mean? Where like it was ruined. I don't know. Like there's a lot of running off. There's a lot of fake physics. I think even as a young child, you go, I don't think that's how physics works. I think they might be playing along a little bit here. So I think I understood that was like a production.
So my question is not necessarily follow-up question is not necessarily if you ever perceived it as fake, but was there a time when you realized like this is not the major leagues of wrestling anymore, where it started to appear like, okay, this is Jerry Lawler in the universe, and I do believe he's the best babyface ever. Sorry, John.
Hey.
But in a different way. But where you start seeing like things going downhill, you're like, the talent is moving out fast. Yeah.
I would say the moment where I probably realized these things were not equal was when like Kurt Hennig showed up on WWE, and then I'm trying to remember there was some Coco Beware. He was one of our, you know what I mean? It's like once you start seeing that, you're like, oh, these guys are going, and like there's more people there than what's on our TV show, because again it was like a 3-row bleacher. You go, man, it seems like they have thousands of people maybe watching. They have pay-per-views. I think that was the point where you go, oh, I'm kind of watching. The thing I like a lot is kind of the minor leagues. And then, of course, the talent started changing where everyone's getting shorter. You know what I mean? Everyone's getting – suddenly Jerry's like the tallest guy on the show. And that's weird. So I think stuff like that. But, like I have very clear memories of like seeing Macho Man wrestle in Evansville. Not quite peak Macho Man, but like you knew who he was. But he, like there's a lot of those guys would show up because they were still kind of doing, indie appearances. So it wasn't until you go, oh, people are leaving our thing to do the other thing, that I think I really went, oh, like this is kind of the dinky mall of wrestling. But I think all that stuff, they did story stuff. Like USWA did story stuff always. And that was always it's always my favorite part. So I was always soft on it. But at one point, whenever it was, what was the name of PT-13? Was that the name of, yeah, that was around the period where you go, oh, I think it's bad. I think it's bad now. And it was bad. So I think they quit showing on Saturdays here. I think at some point they also were just like people quit watching enough that they didn't even bother to show it on Saturdays anymore. And so you couldn't even watch Memphis wrestling for a long time. And it's probably for the best, honestly, because I always have my memory of all that throwing the fire, getting hit by the car, all that cool stuff. Dutch Mantel and his whip, the Moondogs, so I have happy memories. I didn't have to really go through and I might have been kind of out then too, because I think that was sort of the next generation era, and that's the one window that I was full out. I was full out as a teenager. I was full out of wrestling for, I don't know, I want to say like a decade, but it's probably like 5 years of that. So I might have just not been watching it all and just was blessed to miss it, because I have my happy memories.
No, it sounds like an amazing thing, and it's kind of interesting because like when I talk to people from Cookville, the Smoky Mountain territory, I'm jealous of that. When I hear about USWA, I'm jealous of that, even though my home arena was Madison Square Garden. So, it's all about different perspectives and exposures. So I have one more question before I turn over to John to finish us up. So my daughter is in a art and design high school, which is actually, it has like a historical pedigree for people in comic books. She's actually more focused on fashion. But being a professional in the field, do you have any advice for her that won't scare her off from pursuing her interests?
Yeah. Is that the school Erica Henderson went to by chance? Do you know? I think she went literally to the Fame High School, like the school that Fame was based on.
This one's a little bit different. This is the one Mark Texiera went.
Okay. Yeah.
Neil Adams.
Yeah, I know Erica came out of there. So look, here's what I say. And I think for any creative endeavor, make the thing that you wish existed. I think that goes for fashion, it goes for anything. Make the thing that you wish existed and do it to the best of your ability, and do it all the time. Like that's how you get good at it. Just do it all the time. And if you love it, that's easy. It's easy to do that. And I think if your North Star is, I wish this thing existed, even if you don't do a great job that time, you'll still like it because you kind of made something to the best of your ability that existed, that you wish existed. And I think creatively, having that North Star always drives you to finish. And I think finishing is the hardest thing to do in any creative endeavor. I know you can tell when people went to art school and when they didn't go to art school, because they finished. Like they understand, like the hand will never be perfect. You can draw it over and over and over. At some point, it just has to be done. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing that art school and taking criticism. Those are the two best. I went to art school, so I can speak with whatever some knowledge. Is that you learn what criticism is good, what criticism is real, because that's what I assume at her school it's the same way. We didn't have finals. You put your stuff up, and then everyone said if it was good or bad. Like they went around the class, and everyone's like, "Well, I think they don't like you. It's never good." So you figure that out, right? Like that. But if 4 people say the same thing, then they're right. So there's no finals. You just have to finish. I think that's the thing, and she's probably already doing that. You try to make the thing you wish existed in the world, because then you'll always like it. You'll even if you don't get rich, you love doing this thing, and you'll finish it. And those are the most important things. That's my advice for young creatives.
Thank you so much, John.
Mm-hmm.
So where can everybody find and follow you and WrestleHeist? Where can everybody get it?
Yeah, you can only get WrestleHeist at your local comic shop because it's a weird industry. So go to your local comic shop and see if they have it. If they don't have it, they can probably order it for you, and they should order it for you because that's their job. I am at the Kyle Starks on almost all social media. I have a Patreon that's just Kyle Starks, and we do a sticker club and fun stuff. If you want to give me $1 or $5.
Nice. All right, Kyle. Thank you so much for all the time. Everybody, check.
We
out
could have talked so much
WrestleHeist.
longer than this. We could have talked about so many things. John, we barely spoke.
We got
barely spoke at all.
We got to get you back on.
Oh, please. Yeah. I love talking comics. I love talking wrestling. I love that I get to talk to wrestling people again. Just because like there's like, I know we're trying to wrap up, but like, if I'm trying to tell someone at a comic shop what this book is about, it's kind of a longer, more challenging thing. Whereas if it's wrestle people, I can go, oh, it's what if after the Montreal Screwjob, Brett decided to rob WrestleMania? Like that's it.
Right.
And for wrestling purpose, you go, oh, that's interesting. For them, I have to go, so there's this guy, and then there's this other guy, and then I have
gotta explain it.
Yeah, it's tough. So it's always nice to get wrestling people on here because ostensibly it is for wrestling fans. I think if you're a wrestling fan, and again, we could, I think, Do a Powerbomb is. If you guys have, if either one of you haven't read Do a Powerbomb, you should check it out. Apparently on like Hoopla, you can read it for free. And I'd say the first 4 issues are the best 4 issues of a wrestling comic, and then there's a 5th issue. I don't want to disparage that, but it's not for me. But those first 4 issues are the best wrestling comic. He figured out the balance in a way that people could understand how the industry works. And anyway, I don't want to go on, but I like to talk wrestling, and I never get to. I only have my family, and they don't care.
So true. But Kyle, thank you so much for all the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Bye.
All right, Lavie, let's talk a little bit about the news here. What is going on in TNA Wrestling? They had the big TNA on AMC. Did they sell out? Did they come close? What's the latest? What's the news?
Oh man, John, like by the time people hear this, like it'll be covered so much, like the creative. Like when I was watching it, I was like, I'm really not enjoying this. But I don't watch a lot of modern wrestling, so maybe it's just me. And then I went on X and like everyone was like trashing it. Did you watch it?
I did. I was a little bit more positive about some of the things I was reading, but there definitely was. There was like ups and downs. Like the main event was really good. AJ Styles being there was cool, but then some of the camera shots didn't work. There was just some of the things like bringing out Dixie, her getting booed. I mean, just certain things, just the elegant stuff that didn't work. Just some of it, Perez Hilton, that didn't work. So there was definitely ups and downs, but there were some bright spots.
Yeah, not my cousin, my son poked in at the worst times. One is like seeing the Jeff Hardy like earring thing, or like that was gross. I mean, I know like when your ears is pierced, you could sort of do that, but like that was just gross. And then the Perez Hilton, they were like, "What?" My son and my daughter were like, "What is this?" Although my daughter knows who Perez Hilton is,
right, yeah.
But like, the shots of like the celebrities, and then you see all the empty seats because they're doing a good job hiding it, and the production just seemed kind of like low rent. I don't know why wrestling always like messes this stuff up. Like, MLW when they were on Vice, and then, just different streaming opportunities. There's just something like, I don't know, just something goes wrong. But I think that element is probably well covered. The rating will probably be out by time most people hear this as well. I could go on record as being wrong, but I'm pretty pessimistic about it. I think it, might have started out strong in the first quarter. People carry over from movies. It's a decently rated network, as we've talked about, but I think it probably dropped pretty quick. So I'm going to go in like the low 100,000, like a little bit over that. What do you think, John?
Man, probably right around. I was thinking right around 100. I know some people online were saying 300. I was like, I don't know. I think that's a little bit high, but I'm guessing somewhere around 100. Just it ain't what it used to be as far as people watching the television live. Like they're watching the live shows.
Yeah, and it wasn't really even promoted. You didn't have like those like TV Insider or whatever, like articles where they send the talents around to do kind of like puff pieces or whatever. Like that just didn't happen. It was just AMC commercials. Like if you watched Star Wars or whatever, there was a countdown before the show, and then the talents were just saying like watch the show. So I don't know how many other people it reached, but if it did do a big rating, great. But I think you'll see a pretty stark drop off there. But in terms of tickets distributed, according to WrestleTix, 2,830. This included, I think about what was it, 500? For some reason, I didn't grab that part, but around 500 vet ticks, which is a great thing. But obviously, that means the tickets weren't sold. But there is the Genesis ahead of us as we're recording that. They're at about the same amount of tickets distributed. So obviously, that has a chance to pick up. In Albuquerque, the big wheel keeps turning. 844 tickets distributed for the first night thus far, and about the same the following night. An interesting article that I found about Full Sail when they hosted TNA a while ago. This is sort of like Full Sail PR piece that they put out on their own website. Full Sail hosts 3-day TNA. Students gain a hands-on production experience as TNA Wrestling returned to campus for a multi-day production this November. Full Sail welcomed TNA back to campus for a packed 3-day series of live events, rehearsals, and televised broadcasts, bringing the nonstop energy of the Impact brand directly into Full Sail. Load-in began early in the week, followed by full rehearsals on Wednesday, all leading up to TNA Impact Live, which aired on Access. Fans packed the venue, filling the space with charts and so on. One of the interesting parts about it was that they expect to return. And the person at Full Sail, I don't know if you remember this name, John Sabor. He was with the Orlando Tourism Committee, and he was with WWE for a period. I think he may have been the first person that got the bidding thing going, like to get bids on it, like it's a Super Bowl for WrestleMania. So obviously well tied into pro wrestling, and they were sort of saying that they expect them to return, for tapings, which I think is a smart idea, but not anytime soon, because there was a triple on sale upcoming where they'll be going to Nashville, the Pinnacle, Atlanta, not to the usual center stage, and New Orleans for Sacrifice at the Alario Center. One other thing, and as we know, it could be a little bit, sometimes big on predictions and not necessarily have those things panned out yet, but it doesn't mean it's not accurate or true. The MMA Draw had an article a few weeks ago that we didn't cover, sort of talking about financing for Anthem. A media deal buys exposure. It does not supply identity. According to individuals familiar with Anthem's financing, the AMC agreement coincides with increasing lender scrutiny at the parent company level. That pressure is visible in public filings. In the August 2025 earnings call, lender CION Investment Corp disclosed that a newly issued term loan tied to Anthem had been classified as non-accrual following a debt recapitalization that split higher obligations into higher yield tranches. In lay terms, non-accrual status does not mean default. It means lenders are no longer assuming timely repayment and are actively reassessing risk. So from what I understand, Anthem borrowed money, and it's very unlikely that they'll be able to pay it back. So that's not a great sign. Separate SEC disclosures from Portman Ridge Finance Corp outline Anthem's reliance on higher yield revolving credit, a signal that capital has become more expensive and flexibility more constrained. So if you're a higher risk and you need money, you're going to be lent it on a much more aggressive cost.
What is going on in the world of GCW?
So outside of sort of the closing in the circle for Alley Catch, who now has announced that she has left the company, but never say never. The most interesting thing thus far is the early sales for the collective. So the New Japan-based Death Vegas International is already 6 rows sold out, so ahead of the pack with the 7th row on sale. This is followed by Joey Janela's Spring Break, which has the 6th row available. The Bloodsport is also quite popular, and then followed by a number of other promotions like Big Gay Brunch, the Cluster F, MDK, Fight Club.
Now, as far as JCW is concerned, you have some interesting little tidbit about the Juggalos that I was kind of shocked to see, but interesting. They're looking for maybe some help to expand.
Yeah, so Vince Russo have put on LinkedIn. See, everyone got to be on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Looking for professionals who are fans of sports, entertainment, and wrestling. See, he said wrestling. JCW is looking to grow and expand its business. We are currently looking for experienced sales reps who could sell both advertising and sponsorships to both small businesses and corporations. We are also in the market for a professional with experience who can help us shop our show to networks and cable channels and streaming services. Contact me or whatever. So that was interesting. Sort of like I was trying to think about like where could a Juggalo wrestling land, and it was difficult. I think it's sort of like the same thing with like NWA back in the day, or even like the UFC, where it's kind of more interesting almost as like a reality show rather than just the wrestling show itself. Like, wouldn't you want to watch like how does it go together with like Violent Che and Vince Russo?
Yeah.
Like,
oh my
talking
God.
and running the
Yeah.
wrestling. That's much more interesting to me than admittedly, what has been well received thus far is these new Juggalo shows. Because like the streaming services that they can get, they're probably on or have access to, whether it's Triller or YouTube and the other resources that they use. I don't know who is paying for such content right now. I think for traditional cable or like premium services, like I don't know if it fits, anyone's mold. Like, are there any like outlets that you would imagine, John?
Man, like obviously you can't do Netflix, Amazon, like maybe. Like, I don't know. I can't think of like. Obviously, AMC kind of shocked me. So maybe there's another network out there that wants wrestling that could just absolutely shock me. But like CW is taken, Fox doesn't want wrestling anymore. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know who's like mainstream but edgy. Like that used to be like Showtime or something like that. But they're not really,
or Spike or something. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not really like out there in such a way anymore. But the Juggalos, like they create their own thing. So but it just shows that the aspirations maybe are bigger than we might have imagined for all of this.
NWA news? You got some NWA news?
Yeah, so just one piece. Colby Carino, who unfortunately was in like he had some physical issues after getting injured, I think in a match several months ago, who's now on the mend. Obviously he's coming back. There was word that he was like negotiating with WWE and AEW, or it was rumored, whatever it may be, but we knew with WWE that he got blocked when he was very close last time. But he signed a multi-year deal with the NWA. So from the NWA business perspective, I just want to say that's a great thing. He's really like one of the important faces of the NWA. It's only an upside from there. And I just want to say basically, like, I hope this does give him the financial stability and career growth that he needs, rather than just like as a backup if he couldn't get, something else. He's overcome a number of challenges that have been, public. And, I think it's just a smart move by the NWA, certainly.
He's a hell of a talent. Love me some Colby Carino. But what's going on with the MLW? What's going on Major League Wrestling? Anything of note?
So basically, Chicago was sold out. They opened up, a few more tickets there, and that's, legitimate. And with Battle Riot getting closer, PW Insider said that they were happy with their sales, and why not? They're getting close there. So this is in terms of the reserve seats in the Osceola Heritage Park in Kissimmee, Florida, on January 29th. The Battle Ride 8. So tickets distributed 533, 849 setup, but that doesn't include the GA.
Max Republic, our buddy Kevin, anything of note?
So they're announced a number of additional shows, sort of like a second swing. So we know in front of us Laredo, San Antonio, Loveland, and Denver in late January, early February. So now Frisco, Texas, Enid, Oklahoma, Bangor, Maine, which I haven't looked into the size of those venues, but it's, smaller towns. And, it's up to the venue, I believe, as best I understand, to show interest and work with Mass Republic, as opposed to, Mass Republic just, mapping out their own tour and booking the venue. So it's something that has to work for these venues. Candidly looking into Laredo and San Antonio and Loveland and Denver, like, not a lot of tickets have been distributed, but, they always say Lucha comes later and so on. I love the concept, and obviously we wish them well with our friends there. But things certainly have to pick up, but based on what's available, these other venues are interested. So that's a good sign. And it just reminded me when I went, not even that far outside of, like a major metropolitan area, and it really is in itself, Albany, New York. When I was there last year for my graduation, you're looking at like I think it used to be called the Pepsi Arena. I'm not sure if that changed, but like there wasn't much on the board, so like the impact when venues have like an arena football or, other sort of promotions, it doesn't necessarily need to sell out to be successful, because if the venue isn't in use, we're kind of like used to it from New York and New Jersey. The venues are always in use, whereas like when you go a little bit further out, success may be judged differently.
Gotcha. How about Limitless? It seems like their show coming up. I mean, we're talking about almost 2,000 people. This is a big time show here.
Yeah, I love like what Limitless is doing, and I think we have to have the owner back on. We sort of did that case study about 1.5 years ago now, right? When they first went to the Coliseum, so they had been back there at least once, and maybe this is the third, maybe even the fourth time. It's definitely the third, at least. They booked, MJF and Hook, but it's really a Limitless wrestling show because it's mostly, it is their talent that forms the structure. So I love this sort of like it's a territory, right? Like they regularly run smaller venues, but then they have these like huge blow-off shows in this old hockey venue where they're using, I would say, a little bit more than half of the venue. So you could even like, I don't think they're going to open it up for tonight for more, because there's like about 100 tickets left, probably less as we're recording this, but they'll probably sell it out. But like they could even be more ambitious, as they grow. So just an underreported success story.
Big time. Now, it's maybe a little bit controversial here. What's going on with Israel? I know Priscilla Kelly is no longer doing the IPWA show.
Yeah, so obviously people that listen every once in a while, it's something meaningful to me. I am a big supporter of the state of Israel, a Zionist with a capital Z, and that is a positive thing to me. And was excited to see that Priscilla Kelly, also known as Gigi Dolan, was coming. And when she announced that, the haters came out, and basically they were so aggressive towards her that she like just delisted her X account, and she canceled and basically apologized for it. I don't hold anything against her for that. Basically, like, she was just looking for a booking. She didn't take any particular side or anything like that, but she canceled. But smartly, they booked someone who I'm not even sure if he's on X or whatever, Carlito, who doesn't give a whatever what you think about him going there. He's going to go, for the booking. And I know, shoot, I just forgot. So one of his contemporaries from WWE had been
Chris
there.
Masters.
Yes, thanks so much. Saved me again, the theme of the show for the last 6 years, who went there without controversy. But I guess, like, in terms of Gigi Dolan or Priscilla going, like she's younger and more connected to social media and would be more affected by it, but it makes sense. But Israeli wrestling will continue on. People will take bookings, and although I don't believe there's been any human rights abuses, full stop, as they say, people of a younger generation. Even if you did believe it, you have nothing to say about what's going on in Saudi Arabia. There's forced labor that are building these stadiums. They're literally building a new stadium for the Royal Rumble, which doesn't look like it'll be ready. But when you have people that are actually, I don't know who's working on this one, but there has been a history reported of forced labor. Basically, they put advertisements in Asia, come work, and then they charge you more, and you can never really get out of those sort of commitments. Human rights abuses in Qatar that are well documented, where wrestlers go as well, but you have nothing to say with this. You're disingenuous, and that goes to even where are the protests for the people in Iran? As the Iron Sheik might say, I am a New York business Jew, and I think it's important to stand up for the people of Iran. So I'm going all over the board here, John, but covering the geopolitics and wrestling and human rights at the same time.
All right, now you need to discuss the production and distribution end of professional wrestling. It looks like High Spots TV is going away.
Yeah, so just a few little stories. Highspots.tv, they're kind of like that little engine that certainly when distribution of wrestling was different, sort of had a number of promotions there. At some point, there was like some sort of IWTV tie-up, I believe, but like one was never fully integrated into the other, and like it was a little bit confusing how that all worked. But they're just going to focus on their conventions and signings and other things. One FW of Georgia has signed, of course, Scott D'Amore, who will be working there. But we'll get back into more. Maple Leaf is not done. We'll get back into that in another story. And the one I'm most excited about, because it's pretty cool, and it includes some of our friends from Studio Sports One, that they'll be including Dominic D'Angelo. They'll be distributing the Exodus Pro, which is, of course, EC3's promotion. A little bit confusing because I thought Exodus left the NWA, but they still have the same brand logo. But I love to see like distribution in that way through other platforms where somebody builds an audience and then you could actually distribute wrestling through there. We've seen that a little bit with sports as well, different, like on a larger level, like influencers streaming like football leagues and things like that.
Global Wars too, speaking about D'Amore, but Global Wars.
Yeah, so I think an interesting creative idea from Ring of Honor, because they are sort of the spirit of pro wrestling, even if they're not independent wrestling, even if they're not necessarily an independent wrestling company anymore. I'm not even sure if they know what they are, but couple Global Wars. Global Wars Canada announced with Maple Leaf at the St. Clair College, their home venue, and then of course working with Athena and her promotion. There is Global Wars upcoming. As well with Metroplex Wrestling related to their Texas run.
And finally, here and there, you got a couple of tidbits here.
Yeah, John. And the first one, maybe you could help them out. If you have some venue suggestions, I don't know how far that they got, but the territories. This is from the Asbury Park Press. Pro wrestlers raise money for the son of Jersey Shore's Balls Mahoney. A memorial wrestling event is being planned to honor the late wrestler. The Balls Mahoney Memorial Battle Fest raised money for the college fund for his son, Chris Reckner. Fellow pro wrestler Jason Knight is organizing the event, which seeks a venue in Monmouth County. It's been 10 years since Reckner, known as Balls Mahoney, died of a heart attack at the age of 44. His son was 8 years old at the time. Now he's a senior, and they're uniting to help send him to college. Jason Knight and his wife, who live in Atlantic County, are planning this fundraiser event on what would have been Mahoney's 54th birthday, and they're seeking a venue that could hold 700 plus attendees, but they have not found one yet. So John, if you have any suggestions, let them know.
I'll have to think about that. Yeah, for sure. That's I like what they're doing there. I like that. So let's wrap up this bad boy and head towards the plugs from me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. How about you, Lavie?
Yeah, follow me on X at Lavie Marg, LAVIE-MARG. Check out my long form articles on lioncubjobsearch.com, on LinkedIn. Join our group, The Business of the Business. And if you have a opinion about my political leanings or commentary, sorry, my office hours are closed.
All right. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. See you right back here next week for a little business of the business. We'll see you next week, folks.